Welcome back. Thanks for joining us for part 3 of Ransomware Jail. As you saw before, really try to start off with not making all about Pure and even about Netsync, but just about what we're seeing in the landscape, and then thinking defense in depth. Now, we are here to start to dive into how Pure can help you. Want to do that first, though, not even still going to Pure products, but talking about architectural principles. This is what I like to call the hope. When I first started talking about this, this might date it a little bit. Star Wars had just come out, the new hope, and Star Wars illusions are evergreen from an IT audience standpoint. So that's why I keep leaving this slide as the hope. 2 key principles. The first one, like it says there, is thinking about simplicity and reliability of data recovery. Fundamentally, do I know that I have my data when I need it? Now, this is where we go through and we have the layers of defense in depth, but I'm at the point where I'm now actually in the recovery phase. Do I know for sure that my data is going to be there? And the pieces that go into that are simplicity, that the last line of defense doesn't require day-to-day care and feeding, because if it does, it's not going to be there when you need it, right? That kind of thing, as well as reliability. And this is knowing that someone cannot compromise my data and actually mess with my backups, my snapshots, my methods of data protection. So we're getting into immutability, snapshots, and safe mode, like it says. Next, speed. So there's a customer that I'm thinking of, we're leaving names out as we often are here, where when they started a recovery from a ransomware scenario, actually they've been hit by ransomware, it took about 7 days to get the systems back up online for backup and recovery. Okay, well, so be it. This is products I've worked with in the past and whiteboarded, so it's not like it's bad stuff. They started the restore, and it took them, well, it got to the point where it was 60 days. Kind of Windows progress bar style, just keeps counting up and up and up, so you're like, I'm just gonna cancel that, right? So if you get to the point where the restore takes so long, it causes major organizational, financial, or reputational impact, it's almost like all the other work that you did doesn't matter, which is really painful to think about. That's why we talk about speed of restore. And this isn't just a VM or 2, or a file or 2. This is actually maybe half your data center or more. So, and yes, we do have actual customers that are doing this. You can find some of this on the Pure site, as well as on the Netsync site, customers that we have worked with together. So let's go into the first line of defense. And this is now where I'm thinking about primary data and snapshots. Okay, so we're thinking about primary data. I've got data on a storage array, preferably a Pure one, but maybe not. And I think about snapshots as the first line of defense here, because good snapshots at their core are immutable. And there's nothing faster than rolling back metadata on a storage array. Like it says there, nothing's faster than metadata. Now, I like to be careful here though, because I've worked with a lot of different snapshot technologies, copy on first write versus pointer based, et cetera. So on Pure, and this is what I'm referring to here, because hopefully you can use some of these ideas even if you're not a Pure customer yet. On Pure, snapshots are what I call, it's what snapshots want to be when they grow up, if you will, so they are instant, you can take them immediately, no performance impact, they are immutable, period, for 10 years, they can't be modified, right? Once you make them, you can restore them instantly and roll them forward and back. Sometimes that's the speed of iteration. I'm bringing a virtual data store back with VMs in it. I couldn't clean the rootkits out of it. Let me try again, that kind of thing. Now, we have actually had customers that with nothing more than several days of snapshots on FlashArray have actually been able to recover. I'm always a little bit careful here. There's actually a Pure blog post about a healthcare organization where this was the case, right? I never want to say, this is a little bit of belt and suspenders here, right? So I don't want to guarantee this is all you need, but we've had customers where this was all they had, snapshots on their primary storage array, and it worked out for them because of how solid and architecturally robust Pure snapshots are from day one. Well, we've also built some extra pieces here, not just around immutability of snapshots, but around what we call safe mode. And on FlashArray, safe mode goes to the idea that when you delete something on a FlashArray, it actually goes into an eradication bin, almost kind of like recycle bin on Windows, if you will. And we can actually protect that from actually being cleaned out, even if someone has admin access to the FlashArray. Now, you may be wondering in this section and a later one, is it going to give me more details there technically? Actually, no. Not in public formats, because other people may be watching this. We're more than happy to go deeper with you about how this works, both about preventing that final deletion, as well as extending the time of that eradication bin. But next, we get into better backups, the second line of defense. So we think about, if you're not a Pure customer today, you doubtless hopefully have some level of backups. Like, we had the easy button before, like, we don't need to tell you to have backups, right, kind of thing. That's almost a little bit like, come on, let's be real. So how do we make them better? Now here, I have to step to the side for a minute. I've tried to be good and not talk a lot about Pure products intentionally, kind of thing, right? But here I need to talk briefly, 60 seconds, about what FlashBlade is. It's a very different product than FlashArray. If you ask me, hey, can I have 50 gigabytes per second of product on any general storage array, I kind of get a little queasy. On FlashBlade, it's 50 gigabytes per second. That's roughly 50 blades, because it's a high performance scale out platform that is built for throughput. It's not that the latency is bad, but it's not the focus. The focus is on linear scalability of performance and capacity together. And like it actually says there, it says simple, scalable, scale out, multi-dimensional performance. That's even why it says data hub up at the top there. Into some really hard architectural pieces with FlashBlade, where often you can take workloads that have very different work profiles, from read versus write versus random and sequential, and batch versus real time, et cetera. And you can put those together on a system that otherwise you would have needed multiple silos of storage for all those different things. Okay, but like it says there, it says backup, right? And that's what we're gonna focus on here a little bit today. As well, before we even get to the backup piece, like we mentioned from a defense in depth standpoint, you do often want to have pieces that can actually help flag the attack ahead of time. Those rely on being able to crunch through massive amounts of data ahead of time. These are products like ElkStack and Splunk, et cetera, where they're actually doing some real-time analysis. FlashBlade can help dramatically there. It's not what we're going to focus on today. But as you may have heard in the Q&A or in the panel, I like to use the word trifecta, and this is where we start to talk about the trifecta. Before the attack, simple to implement. During the attack, immutable plus, and then after the attack, unmatched recovery speed. So like a good Tarantino movie, let's start at the end actually. Let's start with that unmatched recovery speed, rapid restore. So when we look at FlashBlade, we're used to, often from a backup standpoint, that we know that we're optimizing around backup windows, and we're gonna have to pay a tax on restore. It's gonna be slower on restore than it is on backup. And that's just what we've lived with for a long time. That's even, frankly, some of the deduplication appliances in the market have contributed to that, right? Because you've got to rehydrate all the data. So FlashBlade, interestingly enough, is actually faster, up to 3 times faster on restore than on backup. And actually, it's not like it's all that fast on backups either. So you've got some hero numbers there, about 90 terabytes per hour backup, 270 terabytes per hour. Let's make this actually real from a customer scenario standpoint. So this is actually a real customer, and there's a lot on there, but what I want you to kind of focus in on is where it says down there, 76 times faster restores. This is a customer that already had a pretty modern environment, and they were actually using backups to clone for new staging and test environments. Large software as a service company that if I said the name, you know it. And so they were actually, a customer comes in and says, I need a new staging environment to test code upgrades. They'd bring that back. In putting FlashBlade in, they were able to speed that up 76 times, which almost seems too good to be true, right? It's like that can't be real. As well, when we're talking about this, we're now talking about running your backups onto FlashBlade. Now, keep in mind, we're not talking about, say, putting all your backups on FlashBlade, because there's some cost there, right? Let's be real about it. But often these are the ones that you restore most frequently, 3 days, 7 days, 14 days. And this is where we work well, like it says, Veeam, Veritas, Commvault, Cohesity, a lot of other ones there to say, you need a fast recovery tier. The things you're going to be bringing back more frequently, or in a ransomware scenario that that you would need to bring back. So the second key value here, and this is where it says simplicity, knowing that I can bring it back fast, doesn't matter if I don't have my data. Now, this is the third piece of the trifecta. This is the idea of safe mode, or what I like to call immutability plus. Like it says there, it's the missing link. And there's even an interesting story here. So a couple years back, a large customer came to Pure and said, we are a very large software as a service company. We are worried that if any single one of our admins goes out the door unhappy, they trusted their staff, but still, how much damage could a single person do? And I used to be an admin. I think, how much stuff could I take down in the data center? So they looked at that and said, just from a pure risk management standpoint, they wanted to make sure that one single person couldn't do more than X amount of damage, or hopefully couldn't do any damage, right? So they asked us to create a feature called safe mode in case there was a rogue admin, if you will, someone who went out the door and was unhappy. Now, if you know how product management and roadmaps work, if you're a big enough customer, you can get your own feature. That's just how life is, that kind of thing, right? So we created this for them. And the reason that I bring this out is that in a case of a ransomware recovery or a ransomware attack, I will take my data anywhere that I can get it, maybe even on tape, right, kind of thing. But I'd far rather have my last line of defense be based on something that's been around for several years and isn't brand new. That's why I bring this up. We've only started talking about this feature within about the last year, even though it's been around for longer than that. So what exactly is it? This is actually similar to what you heard about on FlashArray, but safe mode or safe mode snapshots on FlashBlade. So you're running your backup data to FlashBlade, can restore it fast. It actually has the ability to say these are immutable snapshots, plus even if there's been admin compromise, the admin, maybe a compromised admin credential, an attacker, can't actually delete them. They're created and expired by policy for a certain amount of time, protects backup sets and metadata, and we don't charge for this. I've not even said the word evergreen yet, which is one of Pure's core foundational pieces. One of the pieces is evergreen, that your storage gets newer and better over time. We don't charge for new software features as we release them, this being one of those. The other way to think about it, this is a little bit more technical version of what safe mode is. It's really three things. It forces data protection, so it guarantees that you've got a point of protection. It gives you more time. It actually extends the eradication timer, and it keeps the admin account, even an admin, a local admin, from deleting them if there has been, say, admin compromise. Now, as I mentioned before, this is something that we are absolutely happy to go deeper with you on in person, as well as with Netsync, because sometimes there's consulting here. This is where we start to think about, do I want 3 days or 7 days or 14 days? Let's map that to your individual business requirements. So what that looks like is, if you have your backups running to FlashBlade, you have this full backup that executes and completes, and you're making sure to have your metadata and your backups and your metadata, your backup catalog on there. And then when you go and restore, like we've talked about, you've got to make sure to eradicate out the infection. You can reinstall your backup software, maybe keep that as a hot backup servers online. Then you can go and be at the stage where you're actually restoring at the speed of Flash, what I talked about, where it's orders of magnitude faster than we've previously had. Of course, this is still a defense in depth conversation. That is why, as it says here, our goal is to make our customers heroes. This is a very painful and sensitive space, I realize, and the last thing we want to look like we're doing is ambulance chasing. But we've also had customers who have come to us and said, like, we didn't even realize you had these capabilities, and you need to be telling people about them. So our goal is to strike the right balance here in making our customers heroes, helping them on potentially some of the most challenging days of their careers, and preserving their organizations, their reputations, financials, etc. So like it says, trifecta: before the attack, simple to implement; after the attack, immutable plus; and then finally, after the attack, unmatched recovery speed. I greatly appreciate your time. If you have more questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to your local Pure Netsync folks that you know, and we would love to chat with you and explore more deeply how Pure and Netsync can help you with the challenge of ransomware.